We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. Hello and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and we have a return guest today. It's Paul Aryeh, and we're going to talk about a tough subject that it's tough to talk about, but it's important that we do talk about it. And it's going to be, the subject is going to be trauma of sexual assault, but more importantly, how to heal from sexual assault. So welcome, Paul.
Great to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. You know, it was his idea actually to do another podcast on this subject. And as soon as he said it, I was all for it. So I think we've got a lot here that we're going to share with people that's really going to make a difference.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So tell us more about it, because you kind of led this one, and I read your notes. I think it's absolutely appropriate that we do this, and I think it's going to be helpful. So why don't you go ahead and lead this?
Right. And, it really centers around the healing modalities and the healing process. And we all know the negative effects of sexual trauma. We all know it's a breach of trust. We all know that it really affects us profoundly, energetically, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
It really impacts our ability to be open and to love again.
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about the trauma, we're talking about the trauma itself and also the energetic effects long term,
Mm-hmm.
and what it does and how it affects us. And it's a form of PTSD.
Yes.
And the question that comes up, how do you heal that? How do you rebuild trust? How do you remove the after effects of unworthiness, sadness, guilt,
Mm-hmm.
that are hand in hand with such situations?
Right.
And we talked about it, Lisa, that one part you have to really address the fact that it's an energetic process of healing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to disconnect and release the negative effects of that energy, of that person's vibrations, of that energetic ties. That's part of the first step. Part of it is that, I'm trying to be careful with my words, but yet at the same time be very straightforward, because people don't need to be patronized. People don't need to be
Yeah.
coddled. Uh, you're not a victim. What you have in a situation like this is that you have someone who is attempting to dominate and to take away something from you. But in reality, I know in the short term it may look like that. You've been violated. Someone crossed a boundary, and they try to dominate and to impose their will on you.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, part of the healing process is learning that no, you don't have to take the role of a victim. You can rebuild, you can get stronger than where you were prior to that,
Mm-hmm.
and engage in the process of being smarter and developing the positive tools that you need to not only heal, but to develop yourself beyond than where you were before. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
So there's a post traumatic addressing the energetics of it. It's literally a purging of the trauma, and really what with the patients and the clients that I have, it really invokes fear. And fear is
Mm-hmm.
a primordial, I don't want to say powerful, but it's a strong influence in our lives, because what happens is that your whole reality changes,
Mm-hmm.
and people out of survival mechanism will go to fear, right?
Right.
And fear is one of the most debilitating blockages as a human being, because, I mean, just take a look at it physiologically. You're increasing your heart rate, you're increasing your cortisol level, you're increasing your heightened sensitivity to everything, and
Mm-hmm.
over time, this is really debilitating, both on a physical level, emotional level, and
Yeah.
spiritual level, and mental level as well,
Mm-hmm.
because what you're doing is self-inflicting harm on yourself beyond the trauma itself.
Mm-hmm. You're kind of piling it on top, really, is what you're
Yeah,
doing,
because
right?
and at the root of it is like, people don't know how to let go, how to decharge, how to release,
Right.
how to transmute fear into courage, how to take unworthiness and create love, how to remove negativity and increase the positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I work on an energetic basis, right? So if you have fear, hiding from it doesn't help. Looking it straight in the face and knowing what to do and how to release it is the path of mastery,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when fear uh, is rampant and takes over, you become the victim, because it's a force which is more powerful than,
True.
perceived to be more powerful than you,
Right.
because you've got the physiological experience, you've got the emotional experience,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the energetic experience that you're contending with,
Right.
and that's even aside from the actual traumatic event itself.
Right. Right.
So what we try to do is take stock of your vibrational field. I mean, this is your house. Your house is the holy space that you retreat to and that you recover from, right? And in
Yes.
that process, there is the spiritual development of developing a connection to the divine, the spirit, and to uh, strengthen that relationship in a way that you can process through these emotions, these fears, these judgments, these unnecessary beliefs that we developed out of survival.
How about shame? Oof.
Yeah, because shame is just a function of unworthiness.
It's a
it's a
belief system.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a survival technique.
Yeah.
It's a very backwards
Mm-hmm.
uh, survival technique that we cling on to in order to compartmentalize the experience, and to be able to justify, so that we have some calm or some mental security. We like
Mm-hmm.
to have patterns, and we like to have our beliefs, and we like to have our routines, because to the mind, it we associate it with being safe.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when you have routine, like
Right.
kids love routine.
They
Why?
do.
Because it's predictable.
Correct. Right.
When their environment is predictable and there is a routine,
They're
and
safe.
we know that their mother and their father love them,
Mm-hmm.
then they feel safe.
Right.
So you
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can imagine the child in us, how it traumatizes us when our whole world turns upside down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that we need to remember is that we still have that child in us.
Yeah,
They're still in us. I know. I talk to little Lisa, I talk to teenage Lisa, all the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And let me ask you this. This is my opinion and my opinion only. And it's been through um, my experience of working with many women who have suffered sexual abuse as children and then even gone on to having sexual assault later on in life, which seems to happen more commonly than not. I personally don't have sexual abuse in my life, but I feel and I believe that out of all the abuses, and they're all horrific, but there's something about sexual abuse that takes it just to a different level.
Right.
And I think, and we were kind of talking about this beforehand. I come from a Christian background, and I know there's a thing called soul ties, and that's when I read when you sent me your notes. I said this before we got on the recording. When you sent me your notes, I'm like, that's exactly what this is. This is breaking off. It's another way of saying, that's how I interpret it. Is we're breaking off soul ties, which is changing the energy. Um, and I think that you know through so much of my abuse, I've worked through so much of it, and I think it wasn't easy, but it seemed like I was able to work through so much of it. But I know so many women have struggled so much with the childhood sexual abuse, and then going on later on life and being raped. Some of them more than once, and I know that it's almost like we get marked. It's almost like I've been sexually abused, so here I am. Go ahead and sexually assault me. It's so bizarre. But do you think that in your experience, do you think that's true?
Yeah, because it's unresolved. The trauma is unresolved. There's a hole in the tire. There's a weakness that is projected out. There's an
Yeah,
uncertainty. There's an uncertainty and a vulnerability that is being projected out
yeah,
that people prey upon. I hate to
yeah,
say it, but they prey. It's like a target. It's like when you look at a wounded animal, they're easier prey because they can't defend themselves,
right.
or they lack that ability to do that. And what we try to do in the healing aspect of it is there's two aspects of it. It's purging out the negative, right?
Hmm.
Purging out the experience and the doubt and the fear and the unworthiness and the judgment and the negative belief systems that are reinforced over time,
Hmm.
that we do unconsciously. It's not conscious. It's a pattern, but there's a karma there. There is a karmic imprint there, and where it comes from, I don't care. What I care about is removing that karmic
Right,
imprint. You know, I hate analyzing stuff because it doesn't do anything to remove the blockages.
right, right.
Right. So, and I can sense the women that are out there that carry that, and you carry it, and it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, but you can remove it. You can remove that karmic imprint. You can remove that external influence if it still exists, because it still is lodged in your creation point, which is located in for women. It's in the womb chakra area, because that's your creation point. It's one of the most powerful points, and it is so powerful that I am in awe of women's capacity to be able to give birth, because only women could do it. And I understand the mechanism of why people that are out there violating women, because they see it as like robbery. It's like, I'm going to go and break into your house and rob your jewelry and leave. Similarly, they try to impose that on women because they just have it all wrong,
yeah,
and they're damaged, and people are instead of looking at their own issues, they ignore it, and they inflict harm on other people, which is wrong. It's a crime. But we're here to talk about and inspire women that are going to be looking at this video that you can clear out those traumas. You can remove those fears. You can heal. It's possible. I've done it. And it's possible to rebuild your energy back more powerfully than what it was before the trauma. It takes time. It takes working with an energy healer, such as myself, but it's possible. But you have to be truthful and ruthless with yourself and committed in a way that will take you through and beyond it. That's,
I want
yeah,
to pause a minute because you explained something a few minutes ago, and I want to touch on it because I had mentioned, that women who were sexually abused as children often get sexually abused later on. And and I said, it just seems like we're marked. I used to say, it's like we have this little thing across our forehead, um, inviting it. Uh, I shouldn't say it like that, but you know what I mean. But what you were saying is really true because when that event happened, when that woman was, or little girl was sexually assaulted, her world changed. Everything in her world changed. Her perception of everything, her thoughts, I mean, everything changed at that moment. And so I can understand the projection you were just talking about, where we can project. Because I'll tell you real quick, my experience, like I said, I wasn't sexually abused, but I was physically abused, emotionally abused, verbally abused, everything else. I even ended up getting abused in my adult life, even as far as at work. There was abuse that was happening to me throughout my adult life. And I even thought, why is this happening? I had enough of it as a child. Why is it happening now? I even had one employer flip me over and land and flip me onto my back onto the ground. It's bizarre, right? I mean, I could tell stories. Anyway, my point being is that it's what we are unconsciously projecting
yeah,
is what you're saying.
yeah, because the unresolved issue still remains with us, right?
Right. Right. Without going through it and going through your healing, it stays with you.
Right. And it's unresolved. And so unconsciously, we try to heal it, we try
Yeah.
to resolve it, we try to address it. I mean, try to address your fears.
Yeah.
Try to address your fears and see how difficult it is because
It's entwined.
it's physiological. I mean, it's
Mhm.
kind of like, the chemical reactions in the body that affect the brain.
Yeah.
Thousands of years ago, you can imagine if you can hear the coyotes in the background and the lions and tigers and bears out there, it's automatically, instinctively, it's part of our DNA physiologically to be cautious, check our surroundings, to make sure the gates locked, to make sure the windows are locked, to make
Mhm.
sure um, I mean, I've had it. I've had break-ins to my house, and my initial response was, okay, put up cameras, put up motion
Mhm.
sensors, put up light sensors. Do what I can to protect myself. And then I started watching myself, like, wow, I'm having a visceral
Yes.
response that uh, it kind of hijacks your whole system.
Yes.
And then I had to really kind of take a look at it and really deconstruct it
Mhm.
because it's that fear of death that is imminent in the back of my mind that says that if someone comes in or tries to break in, that how am I going to protect myself?
Mhm.
How am I going to defend my family and my loved ones? So I went through that experience and I thought to myself, well, it makes sense to protect yourself, but how far, how long, how much?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
Does it become an obsession, or does it become a fear-driven response, as opposed to, okay, well, I've got everything I need. I have to have faith in God,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of it too, Lisa. Part of the healing is to put your attention and trust
Yeah.
in a spirit or a force greater than you, that that force will protect you,
Mm-hmm.
and that force will guide you. That force will send angels to let you know that you're in danger. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a big jump, because that's going from the normal to the supernatural in terms of
Yeah.
your relationship to, well, who's really protecting me, and who's really looking out for me, and what can I do to increase my protection circles? What I can do to increase my energetic boundaries? What can I do to develop discernment, discrimination, and awareness
Yeah.
around of myself and my surroundings?
Mm-hmm.
If someone threw me on my back, and attacked me in a very aggressive way, I wouldn't be so nice to that person, and I would do what I would need to do in order to set a boundary. Boundaries are important for us, but it's also boundaries to develop with the people we associate with. Discernment is to let people in, and discernment means to keep people out.
Right.
When people, this is part of my coaching that I do with women, is to develop concrete understandings of what a boundary is, and what is necessary in order to be living a healthy, productive life.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to also say is to develop really good communication skills, which most people don't have,
Yeah.
because they don't know what they're communicating.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to communicate in a way that creates a boundary, but also shows respect. Because when you start to respect yourself, people will start to recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that? If you don't respect yourself, or if you think you're dirty, or you think you're damaged goods, or if you think that you're just a negative human being, and you believe that unconsciously, and you project that out, what do you attract?
Exactly.
You know,
It's exactly what I was just saying too. That's exactly it. Is what you believe about yourself is what you are going to project out there. Absolutely.
and you may say one thing, but the energetics of what you're projecting is what people pick up on.
Right.
And it's really important, at least with the work that I do, is to educate people to say, what's the energy you're projecting?
Right.
And are you aware of it, or are you unconscious of it? You know, and I think that's really important. A lot of times, Lisa, people that have been abused, all they're looking for is love, right?
Yes. Yes.
They want
Yes.
they need love. They need to feel loved. They need to feel respected. They need to feel honored. They need to be uh,
Validated.
validated. And um, part of that difficulty is that you have to feel that for yourself first,
Correct.
and,
Yes.
and then project from a place of strength rather than need.
Correct. So true. Because if you're let's just use the word validation because that's the one I use. If you're looking for validation, you may get it and you may feel better for a moment. But if you aren't validating yourself, that it's not going to stick. It's just not. And that's exactly what you're projecting. It's
Right.
so true.
And the reason why, here's what's really interesting, Lisa, is that the reason why that it won't work is because we will unconsciously go back to our default belief system of
Yes.
our experience of ourselves.
Right. Right. Right.
because that's just the normal. That's just the way that we're wired.
Right.
So you really have to do a lot of work and to really discover how you feel about yourself, what your experience is of it, whether it's true and whether it's false. And if it's false, how do you get rid of it?
Right.
How do you remove that? If you really feel yourself, if you really think negatively about yourself because of the trauma, how do you purge that? That's more important. How do you release that
Mm-hmm.
energetically? Energetically, because it's an energetic experience,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that energetic experience created a belief, and that belief reinforces that energetic experience, and so you're in a loop.
Right. Right. I can completely relate to the loop. Yep. And what's crazy is you'll sit there and you will stand back and you will witness yourself on this loop. And I would remember watching the cycle go, and how do I get off this cycle?
Yeah, what's the how do you empower
How?
how do you empower yourself to break that loop?
Exactly.
And it takes power, it takes inner fortitude, it takes a soul uh, energetic shift inside of you. And that takes time, Lisa. You have to simultaneously build your inner energy, but at the same time, purge, or what I like to call decharge or release, or to uh, burn,
Deconstruct would be a good one, wouldn't it?
deconstruct. You know who you're. The energy, the belief systems are just a facade for an energetic experience that it's trying to work with.
Right.
So that's what working, a healing will really help a lot, because it's the healing energy. You introduce a divine energy that breaks that paradigm, breaks that energetics. And then when you break the energetics of it, the belief has nothing to fall upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is that you begin to develop an awareness. Awareness is so important, because if you're not if you can't see it for what it is, you can't change it.
True. Can't change what you don't see.
Yeah, you can't change what you don't see. So it's a combination. The work that I do is energetics. The work I do is increasing your awareness. The
Yeah.
work I do has to do with focusing to develop your personal energy and power, which is a soul mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to have the fortitude and the force to be able to direct your intention and your willpower to break something. And if you have that capacity and you've developed it, once you break something, you must fill it with something else.
Correct. Or it's just going to go right back to the way it was.
Right, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
because it creates a vacuum and a void. So
Right.
what you're doing is changing the energetics, changing the vibrations, changing the belief system, changing and removing the negative influences, and at the same time developing a practice, a meditation practice, a decharging practice, a way to change your experience from negative to positive.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes time, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time, it takes practice, and you're gonna fall down, and you're gonna make mistakes, but that's part of the process. At least you could say, well, I just don't I just can't get rid of the fear, Paul. I said, well, look at it. What are you experiencing in your body? What are you experiencing in your mind? What are you
Mm-hmm.
experiencing in your thoughts? Are you witnessing those thoughts? What's your experience? Are you releasing? Are you decharging? Are you putting your intention behind your willpower to remove and purge it out? When Jesus he talked about a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about a rebirth, and what it meant was is that the soul needs to rise up from the ashes anew, from the traumatic experience, and to hold on to a new relationship with God, to hold on to a new relationship with the world, that there is hope and inspiration, because as there is negative energy in the world, there's also positive energy.
There's a lot of positive.
There's a
There's a
lot of
lot.
positive energy. And to
Yeah.
empower clients of mine that they have a choice in every situation, that, okay, right now I'm feeling fear. Oh, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to embrace love, even though I'm scared shitless about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to embrace what I need and what will nurture me, rather than holding on to the things that I'm fearful about. Sometimes it's just the process of holding on to something, even though it's negative. You know,
It's
that's
what
why
you know, though. It's what you know, right?
it's what you
So,
know. It's, it's
mm-hmm.
it's security. That's why a lot of women still hold on to abusive relationships
Yeah.
with men that treat them like shit, because they associate those actions with love,
Yes.
and
It's
they
so
have nothing.
normal.
It's like, because the fear of not having someone around
Mm-hmm.
is greater than the pain that they're feeling by the man slapping them when he's drunk.
And I want to stop for a second. You're so right, because you said something a minute ago that I want to kind of reemphasize, is that we have a choice in what we do. And I'll tell you, when you were mentioning that, what I used to deal with is I would watch this crazy roller coaster I'm on, right? This Ferris wheel that I'm on, that I keep reliving, and not seeing choices, right? And I described it before in my podcast as I would be up against a wall, and all I would see is wall. I wouldn't even know where to look. I didn't even know there were other options, right?
You know
And
why
one
that is?
day,
You know
what's
why
that?
that is? Because the fear has got such a grip over your,
Exactly.
it has a grip over your mind.
It
It has a
does.
grip over your emotions. It
It
has a,
closes your focus,
right,
and it
exactly. Exactly.
but what I'll say is,
Mhm.
I don't know what it was that made me do this. Maybe I got brave one day, and I'm standing there in front of this wall, and I'm looking at this wall thinking, how am I going to get through this wall? Well, I don't have to get through this wall. All I have to do is turn around.
Right. Right.
That's all I had to do.
Right.
But you're right. The fear freezes you, and it limits what you can see. And I want our listeners to hear this, because this is something that I dealt with for many, many years. And it kept me stagnant for many, many years, because I couldn't get past that point.
Right.
So explain, how can someone break that, right? I,
Med-
I, I gave my experience, but
Two things. One is you need to meditate.
mm-hmm,
What meditation does is it closes your eyes and focuses it within, to the energy and the source of your consciousness.
right,
And meditation has a physiological impact by naturally reducing the tension and the physiological disruptors such as cortisol
right,
in your system, that is basically a fight or flight type of response. Because that fear is not a tiger. That fear is of an unknown, of a possibility, of a
right.
thought, of something that could come in and harm me. So we're constantly engaging the mind externally. What meditation does is two things. One is that it reduces the vibrational impact of fear. The reason why I'm closing my eyes is because I'm also getting in touch with the vibrational change that happens when you meditate. Because when you meditate, what you're doing is you're telling your whole body, your mind, and your soul that it doesn't have to be in that vibrational. It's a vibrational field, is what it is.
Mm-hmm,
Because what happens is that when you are in your waking state and you open your eyes, the thought of that fearful moment enters your consciousness. But when you close your eyes, you're entering the safe space within your aura, and you're releasing out the tension of those vibrations, and you're increasing an awareness
mm-hmm.
of yourself. And in addition, when you're sitting to meditate, what you're doing is something miraculous, Lisa. What you're doing is that your soul is opening itself up to higher knowledge and consciousness and feeding off of this cosmic energy that is showing you that your fear is not necessary. You're connecting to something greater than yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that process, it's opening up yourself to a new reality. You're opening yourself up to a new vibrational frequency that nurtures, that empowers, that gives you strength, that gives you energy, right? Because when you open your eyes back up, it's kind of like you're limiting yourself to only the senses that are coming through your eyes. And that's the power of meditation. Prayer similarly opens you up to
Mm-hmm.
that power, that force, or that benevolent energy that gives you a perspective that, wow, I don't have to really be in this fear all the time. I can actually learn the practice of releasing the tension and breathing deeply that energetic oxygen so that my brain can switch off for a moment that tension or that emotion or release that negative thought. That's the power of meditation plus
Mm-hmm.
instruction plus a daily practice and learning how to, when you have that negative emotion or thought, what to do with it. Most people don't even know that you can actually release it. Most people don't even know you can decharge it. Most people don't even know that you can actually purge it from your system. That
That is
is
true.
that's a miracle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yes. So that's one of the practices. Was there two? I thought you said there was two.
There's also a practice of reconnecting people to the power of nature,
Yes. Yeah, you had that on your list here. And that is a huge one for me.
right?
Huge.
So much happens, Lisa, when you go out into the nature.
Yeah.
When you go to the beach, when you walk
Mm-hmm.
barefoot on the beach, when you go into a forest, when you go to a waterfall,
Mm-hmm.
automatically your soul is connecting to the angels. Automatically, your soul is connecting to the higher vibrations and the power that's contained in the nature that we can't see with our two eyes. So I incorporate these techniques with the coaching that I do so that people can consciously learn the techniques so that they can change their energy. And that's really what it's all about because
Mm-hmm.
if you can't change your energy, if you don't learn a new paradigm, if you don't know a new technique, we'll be stuck.
Right, right, right. And when you remove, like you were saying earlier, when you remove the negativity, you need to fill that void. Otherwise, it's gonna basically come back.
Right.
So for our sexual assault victims, I know you said they're not victims, and it's interesting because, and I know what you were trying to say there. When the assault happens, you absolutely were a victim, 100%. You were being victimized.
You're a victim of a physically stronger person.
Right,
Physically,
right, right. Physically stronger, but you don't have to stay a victim. You don't, and that and I know for years I carried the victim mindset. So I walk that out all the time, and it's a miserable place to be. But you're a victim at that moment, but you don't need to stay a victim.
right?
So what do you do to help the sexual assault survivors? And maybe what can they do maybe right now? What is something they could do right now? You were saying meditation, but is there anything else that they could do right now that could kind of help them
I
release all this stuff?
it takes practice, Lisa, and it really takes mentoring because so much happens in the process. And so I present several options for people to work with me, and it's really important because It's important that you stand up on your own 2 feet, but at the same time, it's really important that you get guidance and you get support and you get mentoring and you get coaching, because it's it's a challenging road, because to get beyond that, you really, it's up to a certain point, you need that support, you need that influence, that positive.
Right.
So I suggest that people reach out to me. You'll put my email, they can connect to me. I can even spend 10-15 minutes with them free of charge to see if we can work together. So we can work remotely via Zoom. We can remotely do healing work as well. Uh, I prefer oftentimes to have in person meetings, because hands on healing is the most potent and most powerful.
Right.
And the other aspect is coaching, is to uh, is to talk to someone, to be able to express, or to learn how to express the challenges that you're there. Sometimes it's difficult. Some people don't know that they're struggling with an energy and they don't know how to express it. And it's easy to say, well, is this what you mean? Do you feel really bad about yourself because you really made a judgmental decision about yourself after this thing? And then they go, wow, that's really intuitive. And sometimes you need that mirror, or that
Yes.
you need that support in order for people to develop that sense of self-awareness.
Hmm.
I don't want someone to have me as a crutch, because the best case scenario is that I've done my service and that you've really developed the skill sets to lead your life with power and integrity and with tremendous love. And
Hmm.
then you're free. So I would recommend that if people are interested, they can just reach out to me, schedule an appointment through my calendar, and then reach out to me. And some people may really struggle with reaching out to me because, let's face it, I'm a guy, you know?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I know that to be true, and I've actually experienced that with some women that that have had sexual assault, that they struggle with working with a man.
Yeah.
That's a real, it's an
But
issue.
but at the same time, it's a great opportunity, because uh, hopefully in the relationship with uh, these women, that they'll develop a relationship with me where they can trust
Right.
again.
Right.
One more person that they can trust,
Right.
because that's a really important thing that I think that every human being needs to be able to do, to remove the heartbreak. I mean, it's heartbreaking,
Yeah, it is.
heartbreak. Heartbreak due to sexual trauma is one is a challenge, and
Yeah.
sometimes it requires a man's energetic influence to help women develop that trust again. I think courage is a really important thing on the not just the spiritual path, but the healing path. And it takes a certain amount of determination uh, and faith that you can change your life. You can really embrace love again. You can open your heart again. You can release fear, anxiety, doubt, unworthiness from your life. It's possible. I've dealt with many clients where that was the case. And I have to tell you, the transformation that happens is profound, because when that healing happens, it's like you've been given the gift of life again, and it's a rebirth.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. Can you share a success story? Just one success story. People love stories and people can connect with stories, and it gives hope.
Um, there's so many of them. I think the main thing is that a lot of the clients um, that I worked with were closed off. I know several of them. They were
Hmm.
closed off. They couldn't feel. They couldn't feel love. and they were in a relationship, and it was really difficult. But that that closed heart, they wanted it,
Right.
and they felt, that men at work were disrespecting them, were trying to dominate. I know this one woman, she has a great relationship uh, with this guy, but she was having a difficult time with the men in her work environment. And even the women, it was very interesting the way she said the women were acting like men.
Oh.
And she had a difficult time with the fact that there was no creativity. It was very rigid. It was
Mm-hmm.
very uh, structured, and it was very competitive. And the men and the women would try to dominate over her energetically,
Mm-hmm.
by position of power or by position of rank. And so it was a toxic um, environment.
Mm-hmm.
But once we really addressed the issues and honed into the energetics within her, she felt the confidence to be able to express it within the environment in a way that wasn't threatening to the other men in the group. And it was challenged. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's the competition in the work environment. She was challenged, and then she said, "Normally, I would react. Women, as human beings, not just men and women, we react. It's because we take it personally, because it hits us in the heart, and we react with emotion. You
Yeah.
know, um, and so she said, I said, she said, I paused for a moment, really thought about it, took a deep breath, which is all the techniques that I explained to her. And she says, I didn't allow myself to react. And then I responded. And I responded energetically from a place of confidence. And the way she did it was she said, you can make that choice, but I still feel this is the best direction we should go because many people will benefit by the decision. And I stand by it. You can overrule me, no problem. But I need to express this to everyone in the room so that my communication is clearly received. She dropped it, and she didn't allow someone to dominate over her energy, but she didn't try to react by challenging that person, but created an energetic boundary and expressed herself and communicated without the emotional reaction in a way that was heartfelt. It came
Not
from
threatening.
it wasn't threatening.
Mm-hmm.
It's stated with clarity. Communication is so important, Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
because energetically, when we communicate, people pick up on the energy.
Before, yes, absolutely. They pick up on the energy before they pick up on the words.
Right. So if someone senses
Yep.
that you're angry, they'll pick up on that. They go,
Yep.
why are you being so aggressive in your communication? Or they'll just push back or they'll just ignore you. So she stood her ground. She communicated, and she was able to maintain her integrity. She didn't
Yeah.
sell out. She stated the facts. She did it in a way which was masterful.
Mm-hmm.
It was just masterful, and she gave the opportunity to either take it or not. And that's all you can do in life.
I so often say it is so important how you deliver the message. It has to do with your tone, and all of that comes from what's going on inside of you.
It's how you manage your energy, Lisa.
Right. Exactly.
It's how you man, and I learned that, and I explain to people, and I give examples. Like sometimes if someone says something that really just it just they just attacked on me, or they just triggered something in me, and
Yeah.
I get as a guy, the normal guy reaction is to get angry
Mm-hmm.
and to punch back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the normal reaction. I said, well, if I punch back, that's just going to create a ripple effect.
Right.
And to be honest with you, when you get angry, you give your power over to the other person. And
Exactly.
people don't even realize that you're
Yep.
actually giving your energy away. And
Took
and
me a
and
long time to figure that one out.
and and I said, I tell all my clients, I says, are you willing to give up your energy? Because
Yeah.
when you're giving up that energy, it's gone.
Right.
And along with that energy is your power, right?
Yep.
There's because by the that's why most people by the end of the day are exhausted, because they're constantly fighting with everybody energetically,
Right.
and they take on all this energy, and then they expel all this energy, and it's like by the end of the day it's like, I'm exhausted, I'm going home. And then you don't have enough of your soul resistance power to give to your partner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can see how the cycle goes. It's about learning how to understand your energy, how to work with the energy, how to communicate effectively to get what you need in order to be successful.
I wanted to share a real quick story talking about energy. And I've shared this story a couple times on my podcast, but it is a really great example of how our energy can affect someone without saying a word. Um, we had a flood at our previous house, and it was a bad flood. I came home on a Friday night, and there was like an inch and a half of water throughout the house, and it was bad. And I know what triggered me. I know what triggered me is the fear of losing our home. And that goes back to, that's one of my previous fears that I had for so long. But my reaction was really interesting. I needed to run to the store to get some stuff while my husband was working with the property manager, because we rented this house. And I was so triggered. And you want to talk about ultimate fear. I was so scared. And I went into the store and I grabbed a cart and I was pushing it through, and I was on a mission. And my energy was so strong, and I didn't even realize it, but that's how lost I was in it. I was pushing my cart towards this woman who was in front of me. She was a little ways away. She stopped. She turned around, she saw me, and she goes, "Oh, let me get out of your way." And at first I was like, "Oh," I was and then I thought, "Ooh, I don't like that." Like, I didn't like that my energy was, I did not like that I put that energy out there at all. And it was a real huge, I've never done that since, because that was such a huge eye opener for me. This woman was 4 or 5 carts in front of me. I didn't say a word. She literally stopped, turned around, saw it, felt it. Well, she felt it, right? Then she turned around, saw me. Probably, I'm sure I looked like a little bit of a crazy woman, because that's exactly the way I felt. And she was like, "Oh, let me get out of your way." And that was just, I still feel embarrassed by that. But it was important. That just shows energy right there.
Right. At least you had see, that's an amazing insight, Lisa. Most people don't even get to that place.
I
That
know.
you are actually aware of your state of being,
Yeah.
and the state of panic and fear. I mean, sometimes fear has its place, and
You're right.
it gets us to. But the point of it is that it's fear of losing your cave.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I'll be out on the street, I'll get into a hotel, I don't know, and I'll be responsible financially to
Yeah.
repair
Yes.
the whole thing. And it's kind of like lawyers will get involved, and then accountants will get involved, and then all of a sudden it's like World War III, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like, how did I get here?
I built a big story. That's exactly what I did. I pulled in every negative thought I could about what could possibly happen in this scenario.
Right,
And
right,
it all boiled down to, I'm going to lose my home.
right, exactly. And
That's the root.
yeah, exactly. And that's a real, financial. I'll address this, this issue, even though it's not on this topic, but the financial threat is something which looms over everybody.
Yeah.
It's like food, clothing, shelter,
Shelter.
right? And then livelihood. And
Mm-hmm.
then, it's that whole, the 2008 financial collapse
Yeah.
just affected people. And that was a trauma. I mean, these are
Mm-hmm.
traumas. I mean, these are not even the traumas that we go through on a daily basis is quite extraordinary. And then also the media does a really good
Yeah.
job to feed the mind of what of to reinforce the mindset to make sure that you are constantly in fear.
Yeah. Feed the fear. Feed the fear.
Feed the fear. I mean, it's kind of like it's really ridiculous. I mean,
That's
I
why I
mean,
limit my TV. Seriously,
exactly.
especially the news.
Yeah,
Especially the news.
yeah, exactly. So it's quite extraordinary, the mechanism of it all, and so that's why meditation, Lisa, takes you out of the influences that affect us, because it doesn't improve us. To sit there between, and watch the news all day long,
Oh,
it's just going to feed the fear and fan the anxiety, and it doesn't produce any tangible positive results. you know and so, part of the training is to really disconnect from the mechanism of influence onto our mental well-being that helps us to balance out our life and to be in harmony. Because
yeah.
that's why I tell a lot of my clients, I says, when was the last time you went to the beach? When was the last time you went to the forest? When was the last time you went hiking? When was the last time you went on a road trip and see the beauty of nature?
Mm-hmm.
That you realize that God in nature is a spectacular vibration, and if you really connect to it with your partner, with whoever it is that you're in love with, that you got married to, it creates a beautiful connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the soul to soul connections is a reservoir of inspiration and hope for us. And to the degree that couples can learn how to depend upon the reservoir of love in a relationship, it will also help the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a committed relationship, they are part of you and you are part of them, and together you can release the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't release the past, what does that tell you about our future, Lisa?
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
the tools, these are just tools.
Yeah.
And if anything else, I want your listeners to know that, hey, there's hope. There are
Yes.
techniques. There's techniques. There are tools, and depending on your capacity, the tools are endless. But you got to take steps. And how do you measure success, Lisa? Is by how much freedom you have within yourself to be happy. Do you have the ability to enjoy your family, your children? Do you have the ability to open your heart to other people, to help other people? Do you have the ability to empathize and to have compassion for other people, even though they're going through a hard time? These are the measures of success. Do you experience God's love? You're Christian. When you go to church, or when you pray at home, when you invoke His name, do you experience that love?
Yes.
See, that's a miracle, Lisa.
Mm-hmm. I do.
That's a miracle. That's a miracle. Because
Mm-hmm.
if for you it may be Jesus, for someone it might be Buddha, for another
Right.
person it might be another deity. It doesn't matter. God is God. And I try to explain to people, because it's very difficult when you're in pain
Yeah.
to experience love,
Yeah.
and that's really the message here. So if you can remove the pain, remove the fear, remove the blockages, then it gives you a little bit more opening to experience love. And
Yes.
that love, if you can really grow that love, it will give you hope to continue. And it'll give you courage to stand in the middle of whatever negative experiences you're going through. But it will create courage and it'll create inspiration just as long
Yeah.
as you keep going. That's my message.
It builds your confidence. It really does. The courage and confidence go hand in hand, and that grows and allows you to be able to do more,
Right.
take more steps, more action.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's
So
basically the message.
it's a great message. I love it. And so let me ask you this. I've got a couple questions. So why don't you tell our listeners how they could reach out to you if they want to, and how they can contact you?
Go to my website, Paul Aryeh. That's ARYEH at I'm sorry, paularyeh.com. That's the website. Everything's there. You can go to my YouTube channel, look at my past videos. You can email me at paul@paularyeh.com. And then there's also a calendar if you want to reach out to me and schedule something, no problem. I like to be accessible. I do a lot of webinars and seminars and retreats, and so I think personally, at some particular point in time, Lisa, I think it'd be really powerful and important that we do a retreat for the women women's community, and to go out there and to really, we have fire ceremonies and we repeat mantras, we do healings, we do a lot of things that could serve the community. And
Mm-hmm.
so I could see at some point in time in the future to be able to have that because it's a direct experience of like all the principles: decharging, releasing, trusting, letting go, having faith, meditating with other people, invoking the ability of the divine to heal is all part of it. And so reaching out to me is the first step.
That's the biggest step, really.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
really
biggest
is.
step. Seriously, it is.
It is. I
It
understand.
is.
I understand.
And so my last question is going to be, I usually ask a different question, but I'm going to ask you to speak to that woman who is listening, who has not started her healing journey, who has dealt with sexual assault, who is in that place that we were talking about when you're in that dark place. And she needs some hope right now. Why don't you speak to her?
Um, it's a little emotional for me.
It's okay.
Uh, there's a tremendous light inside. I've seen it with all my clients. Even though the darkness may prevent you from seeing that light, it exists within you.
Mm-hmm.
If we work together, my job is simply put a mirror up there so you can see it.
Yes. Yes.
And if I could tell you that God loves you more than you can imagine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whatever your faith is, doesn't matter. What matters is to know that there is a divine being in the creation that wants you to experience love.
Yes.
The past is the past. Healing is possible. It's your birthright to understand who you are. That light is greater than any darkness that may be surrounding you now. Take the step, have courage, have faith, be patient. The pain is only a temporary experience. You can walk out of the pain. When you walk out of the pain, you'll walk into love.
Yeah.
Love is more powerful than any pain you may be experiencing right now. Have faith. Take the step. It may not be me. It may be Lisa. It may be somebody else. The main thing is Get unstuck, remove your doubt, and reach out to someone to help you. That's more important than anything else. And I pray for you, sending love. God is there. Don't worry. Be happy. Take the step.
That was beautiful. Thank you. That was really beautiful and perfectly said. Thank you, Paul, for being a guest again. And we always have great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Before our podcast recordings and during our recordings, we always have a great conversation. And thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you do in helping these women. This is not, it's a tough subject, and it's not easy to work through it, but it is absolutely possible. You absolutely can heal from your sexual assault, and you can live the full life. You can live a better life than what you even could imagine. I can promise you that. I'm experiencing it myself.
Yeah, and thank you, Lisa, for all the work that you're doing here. I really recognize it as a major contribution to community and society and people out there that you're touching currently, and for the future people that will reach out to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.